welcome to another little chat. I'm sorry if you've been waiting for this one. It is a few hours late, but I don't think there's many of you that are desperately waiting. But I know there are one or two who are very keen to see it. I just was tired yesterday and couldn't think of anything really nice to talk about. So here I am. It's Monday morning here. I got a muffin behind the curtain. He's just sitting in the sunshine, so you might not see his face today. I think he heard. Did you hear me say muffin? You did hear me say muffin. Today I'm just going to talk about when my cousin and I used to stay together in the holidays. My cousin Louise, she was very close in age to me. I think she's a year older, and our mothers were really close. They were as close as sisters. So my Auntie Irene and her Auntie Eva had grown up together as close as sisters, and continued to see each other, and our families spent a lot of time together. And Louise and I used to go and stay at each other's houses for part of the school holidays quite often. When she used to come and stay at my house, we used to mostly go out on our bicycles and cycle for a few miles around the place, and I think we must have done that from about the age of 12. I'm not exactly sure, but I think one of our favourite things to do was to cycle down from where I lived on the council estate at Upton Priory. It was only a couple of miles, if that, to Prestbury, which is a really posh village. There's no other word for it. Like Coronation Street stars lived there, and Manchester United football players lived there. So a lot of wealth. So very, very different from where either of us were living. And I think we were both quite, we didn't know the word aspirational, but I think we were both quite aspirational. And we used to go to the cafe there called Ye Chocolate Box. It had a sweet store downstairs, sweet shop, with jars of sweets and lots of expensive boxes of chocolates. And boxes of chocolates in the early 70s were expensive. You could still get the old style boxes with the lid that lifted right off and had a padded satin lid with a picture of puppies and kittens, or an old classic art reproduction and a big ribbon around it. So we couldn't buy any of those things, but we used to go upstairs to the cafe and have coffee, posh coffee with cream. So I have no idea whether they used to make the coffee, whether it was brewed coffee, percolated, or whether it was just instant. It was probably instant. I think most coffee was in those days. But the thing about it was it used to come in a pot very often, and you would pour it into your cups and then put some sugar in, and then turn your teaspoon upside down, and you would pour the cream on top to float it on top of the coffee, like you do with an Irish coffee. And then you sip your the sweet black coffee through the cream. Very luxurious, and also, I think we just felt like we were soon, you don't live in Prestbury or anything like that, and they just used to treat us like any other person, which was also, which we used to like a lot as well. So that would, and then we would go and have a wander very often around the churchyard and look at the old graves. Prestbury Church actually has a Norman chapel, which you can't go inside, but you can look at the outside, and then cycle uphill all the way back. So it kind of kept us fit as well. So we had some really fun times, and we also would go meet at the weekends sometimes, even during the school term. I would get the bus and the train into Stockport, and she would get, I think, a bus. I'll have to ask her, because she'll be watching this and she'll remember. And we would meet in Stockport, and I remember there was a baker's that made really good and cheap Cornish pasties, and we might have Cornish pasty and chips and just sit on a bench and eat them. Which reminds me, actually, sitting on the bench and eating the food reminds me that one of the things we both hated was when our mothers used to take us shopping in Manchester and go to a department store like Debenhams. Hello, we've got a muffin. You know, the equivalent of, say, Grace Brothers or Maya for those Australians among you. And they had a self-service cafeteria there, and you would get, oh no, don't muffin. What did you do? Don't stand on the keyboard. Come here. So our mums would always take a packed lunch with us. Fair enough, because it was so much cheaper. Nothing to say against that. So they'd take sandwiches with us, and but they would then go into Debenhams or somewhere and buy pots of tea. And then while we were sitting at the tables in the cafeteria having the pots of tea, they would try and get us to eat our own food in the cafe, and we were both mortified, absolutely mortified, in case anyone saw us, that we were so lacking in class, I think, probably. But you know, maybe there was a fear that we would get thrown out as well. I think from our mum's point of view, they thought if we'd bought a drink that was good enough. I don't think from Debenham's point of view it would have been good enough. And it's not that we minded having the sandwiches. We would have been very happy to eat them on a bench outside and then go and have a cup of tea, or vice versa. But our mums used to be quite blasé about it. They'd probably been doing it all their lives, come to think of it, because they used to go out as young girls and teenagers together. I remember my mum telling me that they used to go out. I wonder where they were going, because it was night time. Maybe to the cinema or dancing, I'm not sure. But she wasn't allowed to wear makeup, and they used to stop under a street light, and she used to put her makeup on under the street light. So, yeah, they had a similar relationship. Come away. I don't want you to sit on the mouse because you make things go wrong. So, yeah, happy memories. And just before I go, a little educational aside, if you're interested. Ye Chocolate Box and Ye Oldie Fair and Ye Oldie Anything only came about because when they started printing books in the, I don't know, I should know, I want to say 16th century, they didn't have a printed letter for the English letter thorn, which was looked a lot like a Y and made a th sound. So they substituted Y very often, and so it never was ye old thing. It was always the or the old thing. But especially in the Victorian era, they and the early 20th century, the ye oldie thingy became a thing, and so hence Ye Chocolate Box, which was there right up until, I don't know when it closed, the 90s maybe. Anyway, have a good week ahead, and I'll see you next week, and I love you all. Bye bye.